The following program contains graphic descriptions of events including crime scenes of actual murders. Parental discretion is advised. In 1989, Franklin Delano Floyd was convicted for the murder of Cheryl Ann Comesso and the kidnapping of a 6-year-old stepson from his school in Choctaw, Oklahoma. He is also a person of interest in the 1990 hit-and-run death of his wife, Cheryl Marshall. Sharon's real name is Suzanne Marie Savakis. She was the daughter of a woman Floyd briefly married. He kidnapped Suzanne, her 2 sisters, and her infant brother while her mother was in jail. He raised Suzanne, and she later became his wife. Her brother was never found. Floyd was born in Barnesville, Georgia. Because of the death of his father, his mother was unable to take care of him and his 4 siblings. They were put into foster care in Hapeville until his older sister was able to take custody of him. During his time at the home, there were reports of abuse and him getting into trouble for running away and stealing food. He did not last long at his sister's either. After leaving his sister's house, he had his mother forge legal documents so he could join the Army. 6 months later, the Army discovered the documents were forged, and he was discharged. Soon after, he became a drifter, traveling all over the country. In July of 1968, Floyd was notified of his mother's death. In February of 1960, Floyd was 16 years old. He was shot in the abdomen while breaking into a department store to steal a gun. He recovered and was sent to a youth institution for a year. A year later, he violated parole while crossing the border into Canada to go fishing. A couple years later, while working at Atlanta International Airport, he abducted a 4-year-old from a bowling alley and sexually assaulted her in the woods. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years at Georgia State Prison. Later that year, he was moved to Midgeville State Hospital for psychiatric testing. In 1963, Floyd managed to escape the hospital and fled to Macon, where he robbed a bank. He was convicted and sent to a federal reformatory in Chillicothe, Ohio. He attempted to escape again, but failed, and was transferred again to the United States Penitentiary in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. In 1968, he was transferred back to the Georgia State Prison. It was from there he was released and sent to a halfway house. A week after being released from the halfway house, Floyd was arrested again. This time, he managed to get a fellow inmate he knew from the Georgia State Prison to post his bond. Immediately after, he became a fugitive, not showing up for his court date in June of 1973. Then in 1974, while going under the name Brandon Williams, Floyd met a woman named Sandy Chipman, a mother of 4 small children, Suzanne being her oldest daughter, only 5 years old at the time. Floyd knew Sandy for a month, and then they got married. Shortly after, the family moved to Dallas, Texas. Less than a year later, Sandy Chipman was sent to jail for passing bad checks. After being released from jail, Sandy went home to find her entire family packed up and gone. She was, however, able to track down her 2 middle daughters at a local church social service group home. Her oldest daughter and her youngest son, she couldn't locate. In 1989, Floyd married Tanya Dawn Hughes, who went by the name Sharon Marshall. She had an infant son. They were living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She was a strip club dancer. After talking to friends about her abusive relationship with Floyd, aka Williams, she ran away in April of 1990 and took her son with her. Later that month, she was found on the side of a road and appeared to have been struck by a car from behind while walking to the local grocery store. Floyd showed up at the hospital the following day. He claimed they were still together, and he was asleep at a local motel when it happened. She died soon after. Tanya's son Michael was put into foster care by Floyd, and he fled the state. Shortly after, Floyd was arrested again, this time on a parole violation. He tried to adopt Michael after being released, but wasn't granted it because his DNA proved that he was no relation to Tanya's son at all. Then on September 12th, in 1994, Michael was a first grader in Choctaw, Oklahoma. Floyd walked into Michael's school and forced the principal at gunpoint. He forced him to take him to Michael. 2 months later, Floyd was arrested in Louisville, Kentucky. After many accounts by Floyd of what happened to Michael, to this day, he has never been found. During the search for Michael, authorities uncovered that Floyd had raised Tanya as his daughter. It was revealed shortly after that Tanya was indeed Suzanne Marie Savakis, the oldest daughter of Sandy Chipman. 2 years after high school, Suzanne, going by the name Sharon Marshall, gave birth to a son. She then began working as an exotic dancer and married Floyd in 1989 in New Orleans. Later that year, another exotic dancer who worked with Suzanne went missing. She was later found by a landscaper off of Interstate 275 in Florida. She was beaten and had 2 gunshots to the head. Floyd and Suzanne were persons of interest in this case. Shortly after, they fled to Oklahoma, but not before they burned their trailer to the ground. Then in March of 1995, a mechanic had purchased a truck at an auction. It was in the vehicle he had found a large envelope containing 97 photographs of a woman who was bound and severely beaten. The police tracked the truck back to Floyd. The photos were that of the exotic dancer Suzanne once worked with. It was enough evidence to convict him. Other photos found in the truck were of Suzanne at a very, very young age. They were sexually explicit. In 2001, during his trial, the judge ruled him to undergo a mental evaluation as he was not competent to stand trial. He fought that assessment, and a few months later, she reversed the ruling. He was ordered to stand trial. He was convicted and sentenced to death. 13 years later, Floyd finally admitted to killing baby Michael. He said he dumped his body near Interstate 35. They searched, but unfortunately his body was never found.